Zoom family. Welcome back to another episode of Speaking Legally, where the legal meets the cultural. We're so excited to have you join us for another show. You're here all the time, listening, sharing, adding your own value. We appreciate you. We want to say thank you. So we're here 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every single Wednesday with our legal experts, Joyce Russell Esquire and Edward Pichardo Esquire. So, Mr. Pichardo is on location. So when he's able to tap in, he'll join us for today. But it's a full day of a lot of stories. We're in the month of July, somebody's birthday month, and like he celebrate all month long. So we want to definitely shout out those of you that have special moments happening in this month of July, the seventh month of the year. Now we're on the second half of 2021 and praying that you stay safe. You know, we always give our disclaimers on the show. COVID has not completely gone away. So just be careful as you're gathering, you're moving about, the city's opening. We didn't really talk about that on the show, but everything is officially moving back into the economy being stimulated. Gives me pause. So just be careful out there. And we're thanking you for joining the show. Mr. Russell, you want to say hi to our people?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another show. And we're going to get to where the getting is good because there's a lot to be said about ranked choice voting and who's actually the winner. A lot to talk about as far as passing ancestors and to Chapter Invisible. And I would say one of the last things that Biden has talked about and hasn't really dug his teeth in now that they have left Afghanistan. They did the grand opening, grand closing on that one. They just left bicycles, cars, keys in the ignition, and was just out. Is to talk about immigration reform. But welcome to everyone. I thank you for celebrating all of Kansas' birthdays for the month of July and mine as well.
Absolutely. I believe in birthday celebrations, especially in light of the fact that we've had so much challenge happening around this one. There are happy moments. We need to celebrate it. Hey, Deborah, great to see
Oh, you
you.
know what? And I would be remiss if I didn't say happy belated birthday to my sister. Yeah, I wished her a happy birthday, but her birthday was the July 5th. And so since today is only July 7th, we still rocking it all the way out,
You're
all the
still,
way.
you're still within the window of forgiveness of saying it publicly, but you said it privately, so you got her on the day.
Right. It was too far in advance to do it last week because it was like a whole week and some change. But we got to get it in there.
Okay. All right. So two cancers that your parents had to deal with. Hey, Richard, and so did you. So happy birthday to your sister and to all the other cancers out there. Let's give y'all a little horn celebration for the birthdays.
Yeah, shine a
Now,
light on it. We got plenty of
yeah.
light here, so that's good.
All right, Mr. Russell. Richard, help. Anyway, so as we get into the show today, there's a lot that has transpired, some sad and unfortunate passing of now will be referred to our ancestors. One was definitely more shocking. I mean, every death is not something that you expect to hear about, but it took us all by surprise in hearing what has happened. Oops, wrong story. We will get back to that one. We're going to get to that today. That was a sneak peek. But we unfortunately lost a leader of one of the countries where, when you talk about freedom and you talk about what has happened to the experience of Africans throughout the diaspora, for those of us who are history buffs and understand the importance of the revolution in Haiti, we know the significance of the history there, what has happened since then, and to see how we heard about this assassination, it's just unbelievable. Our prayers go out to his wife, who is still in critical condition. So, if you didn't know, the Haitian president, Jovenel Moise, I know I'm probably butchering that. He was assassinated in an attack, and the first lady is suffering. So, the country is being run by the interim premier, Claude Joseph, and the country right now is in unrest. Having the leader of the nation being assassinated, you can only imagine what that is trickling to the point that the Dominican Republic apparently has closed their borders because they're concerned about the unrest now in the country. So
You
it
know what's
happened.
symbolic about that is that
Mhm.
one, we have the Haitian president uh, dying, right? Intentional, assassinated. And then, and I know we're going to talk about this, we have Eric Adams, who is of Haitian descent, rising to the forefront, you know what I mean, to become one of the leaders in our city, major.
Major.
So you see how we say God works in mysterious ways, right? And how things kind of, I don't want to say it's coincidental, but it's symbolic in some sense.
Absolutely. And this president was only 53 years young.
Yes.
You know, it's a lot that's been going on politically and what has been happening in the country. So let's just send up prayers to the family, of course, as well as the country and all of our Haitian American brothers and sisters who are here in this country, hearing the news and concerned about family that is still back on the mainland. So we can only imagine what they're feeling and what they're going through. But we just want you to know our prayers are with you in solidarity for peace in the nation. And then we had some additional unfortunate news that we lost another one of our great actresses. We've had the chance to not only know who she is, but get to work with her recently on You Sharing Thoughts with Cardiac Arrest, the tactical guide on how to handle police stops. And you were a part of a panel that we were able to share the stage and see the beautiful Suzanne Douglas, who unfortunately has transitioned at a young age of 64. Most people remember her from a couple of the movies that she was in.
Yeah, definitely the Inkwell. She was one of the co-stars in the Inkwell. As the article says, the Parenthood star. And what was important about the Parenthood star in the show Parenthood was that it was one of the creations of Robert Townsend. And Robert Townsend, one of the renowned directors, African American directors, produced Five Heartbeats and so many. He's kind of like the Byron Allen of the movie scene, right? Move quietly, owns a couple of things, have done a couple of things, and he was one of the co-stars and producers of the Parenthood, and she starred in that, and she will be missed, always remembered, and especially her role in Inkwell. That was something for folks to go back and look at.
Absolutely. We can't forget how Stella got her groove back. Like,
Oh yes, Stella got her
that was a
groove back.
classic.
Yes.
That was a classic. And as a mother of two young men, her role means even more to me in that particular movie and how things played out. But we will miss Suzanne. Her work will live on. That's one of the things about having bodies of work that outlive you. So everything that she started, all the work that she did and what she was passionate about in her philanthropy and some of the other initiatives that she took on will
And she was,
continue.
I'm sorry, Dr. Grant, she was very big into music.
Mhm.
And we will be remiss if we didn't mention and give our condolences to the women of Delta Sigma Theta, because she was a Delta,
Yes.
and that's why you see her in that red, right? And so we must give our condolences to that organization because they lost a star.
Absolutely. So we will most definitely be remembering my D9 sister, and just beautiful. She was just beautiful from the inside out, a really wonderful and tremendous contribution to the talent of Black Girl Magic. So as you can see, Senor Picharo is joining us, and we know he's been on location and this is on now. So we are Senor Pichardo. We were just acknowledging our Haitian brother, president, that was unfortunately assassinated, and talking about Suzanne Douglas as she has transitioned. So you're just in time for us to get into the fact that Mr. Russell made a great comparison to the fact that our new mayor elect for New York City has Haitian descent. And as one leader was assassinated, another leader is rising within the ranks of leadership for one of the most powerful city structures within the world, not just the country. and I'm sure that he must be reflecting on what has happened. We know that ranked choice voting is now settled, and all the winners have emerged. So all of
Do
our
that one more time, please, because that's deserving.
so now
One is for the people that brought out the false numbers and counted stuff that shouldn't have been counted. And then the other is for the fact that we're finally at the end of a very trying situation that would lead many. Thank God this outcome happened the way it did, because I'm sure people of color would have thought that some shenanigans went on. And look, and some people would call them crazy. Some people say, look, you're really not educated. But we don't need to have that on our plate when we have folks that are involved with the insurrection thinking that, there's shenanigans going on with the national election of our president. We just need everything to work smooth. This way, nobody else can join that bus and try to get a back seat. Because, if we join the bus, we got to sit in the back, right? So,
what I would say is that this is a testament to the system working as designed. There were people who listed Eric Adams as their second and third, or I'm not sure what other law. I think it's second and third, and it worked. Those votes got counted in his favor, and he finally was able to get beyond the 50% threshold over his immediately next opponent, Garcia. Candidate Wiley was about 350 votes between her and Ms. Garcia before the absentee ballots were counted, before elimination. I would say, she has a lawsuit in place. She wants some sort of hand count to take place. The system is working as designed, I would say. I certainly was of the mindset, because some of the media was saying, oh, those votes are coming out of Manhattan, and they were assuming that it came from, I guess, white people who are anti-black. But in fact, Eric Adams, as I discussed, was right before the election, he was being looked upon as the law and order candidate. Former, I believe, police captain, was one to say, hey, listen, this whole defund police, I don't believe that the black community necessarily feels that way, because we feel the brunt of crime in our communities, and we don't necessarily want communities where there are no police. We just want to be treated better. So I think that message even resonated with white people who are saying, hey, listen, there's a serious rise in crime right now, and we want somebody that is going to keep us safe. I think the assumptions that votes are coming out of Manhattan, predominantly, white neighborhoods, are going to go against Eric. Yes, he squeaked by, no doubt about that, but now the question is how's he going to govern, and whether he's going to be able to rally in those folks who may have not chose him as his first.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, whether he can rally them or not, he needs to do like every other mayor. You get on the bus or you sit on the sidelines and you move your agenda the way you need to move your agenda, because we have seen and bless Mayor Dinkins for being able to, crack the glass ceiling. Acquiescence will get you nothing but a footprint in the back of your behind. That's what it will do. You will have no succession plan. You will not have moved your agenda. So folks will either get on the bus or they will be left behind. And to his credit, the fact that gun violence is at an all-time high, that weighed in folks' votes. If you just want to kind of polarize it and say white folks, because you add that with gentrification, and now not only you shooting in the lower part of South Bronx, but wait a minute, they just built a nice little condo over there. They built a nice little Starbucks over there. Harlem is not the Harlem that we once know. Brooklyn is not the Brooklyn that we once know. So now, wait a minute, where the guns are more frequent and the shootings are happening more often, and gentrification is meeting that almost like at at a meeting point, yeah, the votes shook out the way people wanted them to shake out because they wanted a certain result. And Garcia could not even front, like she was fronting with her last name, to even bring that type of result in place. And so, whether the system worked out or not, the man who I believe is supposed to be in there is in there.
Well, I feel like anytime that, a person of color, and particularly African American, is voted in as mayor of any major city, that's an individual that has to navigate a very tight rope. You got, and of course, you're right. If people of color in this city don't feel that this mayor is addressing their needs, he's going to find himself becoming a one-term mayor because, people from what I've heard, about the Dinkins era, I was, I think in my first years of college, coming out of high school, I believe you had a Mayor Dinkins administration. And from what I hear of a lot of the folks who were really immersed in politics at the time, they kind of felt like he had, shifted from, his original agenda to one that didn't necessarily include them. And so when it came time for that second term and getting their votes, he wasn't able to, garner those votes. And so, Eric is going to have a lot to navigate. He's going to have to navigate the increasing gentrification in the city, the lack of affordable housing, the apparent rise in crime. There's a lot of issues he's going to have to navigate, and they're going to be a number of constituencies whose issues he's going to have to address, and none of it is really going to be easy at all. All of it is going to be tough. He's going to have to really make sure that the administration that he puts together is one that's up to the task, prepared and competent and ready to get in there, roll up their sleeves and do what they need to do unapologetically, of course, not feeling like, they have to do other than what, they're mandated to do and what their supporters have elected him to do. So, I wish him well. Congratulations, Eric Adams, former Senator Eric Adams. We worked closely at one time. And so I wish you the best, brother. Congratulations to my Haitian brothers and sisters. As I've said on the show quite often, I'm Dominican. Both of my parents are Dominican. I'm born here. We share an island with the nation of Haiti, and I feel their loss since the inception of the republic. They have suffered from antagonism from the world, and now you have another tragedy. You had the earthquake years ago. You have an increasing or constant instability. I believe currently they've been facing a serious crisis in terms of them being able to get free elections. This is horrendous. I hope that they're able to stabilize their government and move forward. I really wish them the best.
Well, when it comes down to Eric, if he's taking advice and he's taking notes from anybody, you have your agenda, you plan your work your plan, new things will come up, and you have to decide whether or not you want to deal with those new things. You're not going to satisfy everyone. You don't have any more burden than anybody else that takes that office, and don't believe that you have this extra burden, except for making sure that people are treated fairly. And if you make sure Black folks are treated fairly and are represented, and thought of in your plan, then we'll have no beef, because everybody's not going to be satisfied with your work. And that's for sure. And there's people already anticipating that you will fall down before you even started. So,
Yeah.
you won the election. You won the election. You take human bites. You won the election. I'm sure you've thought of all your people that you want to put in place. You put them in place. You plan that work, and you work that plan.
And I think at great point, Mr. Russell. I think as we think about the turn turn out, turn up. Look at the numbers, who came out, where the numbers fell. I think it was interesting to see who got what percentage of the vote with all of those who were ranked. Quite interesting. I wouldn't have suspected that Garcia would have been in second place. So it was interesting to see how some of the other folks who spent quite a bit of money landed in all of the elections for, or I should say, in the ranking for mayor. But then it was also interesting to see how the other races played out in New York City with ranked choice. I'm happy to report that my candidate has a clear and distinct victory for city council in Queens, District 27, Natasha Williams. Our Queensborough president was able to maintain his seat. You know, there was some things going on. We're like, what is happening? How did the votes turn out? So for our viewers, this is once again an opportunity for you to just stay engaged. Tune in and understand who's really doing what, right? This is the primary. We still have to get through for November for everything to be official. John is saying that crime is the number one problem. So I think Curtis will give him a good run on the crime issue.
Oh my
God. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So this is going to be, it's going to be interesting. And Rich, I see you. He said
Curtis got to watch out for Hawk Newsom running around chasing him. That's what Curtis better look out for. He gonna make it to the mansion.
Well, it's definitely going to be something for all of our audience to pay attention to. The people who did receive the votes to carry in this election, how we hold them accountable. We're dealing in some real crisis situations with recovery, on the economy, on health, on disparities, on policing. There's a litany of items that are on the table. So all of the hype that goes into getting our candidates in office, now we have to keep everybody accountable and hold everybody accountable for real tangible ways that our communities continue to get better, not worse. We don't want to go backwards.
I think something I think
to add to what you're saying, and I don't want to beat this election down any further than they got to get beaten down. We got a winner, person's going to take office, and they got to do what they got to do. But one of the things that New York is going to look at, and one of the things that we see nationally when you talk about, we got a lot of things to think about, and what is going to slowly rise to the top. And when I say slowly, I don't mean that slow. Outside of gun violence is, what are we doing about immigrants and what's going on?
Before we get to immigrants, I know Senor Pichardo wanted to add one more thing on the election. And then, that is going to be a hot button topic when we talk about what the Supreme Court just did. And that's what we're going to delve into next. But over to you, Ed.
Yeah, I just want to briefly mention that when you look at the numbers, you still have a large portion of the public that doesn't vote. You know what I mean? And one of the things to keep in mind is Eric Adams won the Democratic primary. He's the presumptive mayor because of the overwhelming number of registered voters being Democrat in the city. But we must not forget those who support his mayoralty, his presumptive mayoralty, need to still come out and vote in the general election. Despite the fact that in most people's minds, the Republican candidate is just not as strong as that Republican candidate has been in previous years. I mean, Curtis Lewa, congrats, Guardian Angels, all that. But, in terms of what I used to see him do on New York One and with Kirsten Barrero and
there'll
all
be
that.
enough debates to filter that out. We'll be able to get the rabbit out of the foxhole with these debates. So
I'm just not sure.
I understand.
I'm just not sure that many people take him that serious, but we still need to come out and vote and make it official. And a lot of people just don't come out to vote. I remember being out there handing out leaflets, and I remember this one Latino sister. I handed her a leaflet, and she said, "Oh my gosh, there's an election. Who's running and all that?" And I say, "Yeah, this is one of the most important elections you can vote in your life." And she said, "Oh my gosh, I got to really sit down and do my research." I say, "Yeah, please do. You can vote today, but definitely make sure you vote by primary day, because this was a few days before primary date." And I don't know, I run into so many people who have to call up like, Yo, you know it's election day.
And that is also part because they move dates around, right? And folks are still not in the routine.
Nah, man. Even before that, bro. You know, we don't take advantage of the franchise, man.
Look,
you know, we don't even exercise
the premise that I'm putting forward is not.
They're not there, so bro. Esta gente no están votando. You gotta come out and vote, man. We complain.
That too. The premise that I'm putting forward before you jump out the window, and even though you live on the first floor, is not that people are voting or not voting because the date is moved. I am just saying that we do have to take that in consideration, and we do have to reiterate that the date has been moved. And we do have to reiterate, don't sleep on that the date has been removed, and don't sleep on the fact that, all right, we got over one hurdle. Now we need to go over another hurdle. That's all I'm saying. The premise that
you're a kind gentleman. You're very kind.
Look,
I'm not that kind.
No. It's look.
You get the leaflets in the mail.
The reality is that we know that in our community we don't vote. We know that. We know that, right? And so we can say, go vote, go vote, go vote. I get that. We also got to say, notice that the dates have changed. Notice that this is happening. Notice if you're going to put the education out there, you got to put the education out there from the top of the sheet to the bottom of the sheet. That's all I'm saying.
So let me just to underscore what both of you are saying and the importance of paying attention. All right, let's get to the fact that Rudy Giuliani is standing with your boy Curtis, right? So this is
that's a great look. We got somebody that's suspended from practicing law standing right next to somebody else who doesn't really know anything outside of the law. You know what I'm saying?
So I just need to highlight and underscore what we're dealing with. So let's not take anything for granted. And to both of your points, we have to continue to encourage all of our community to stay engaged in the process. It is the process. Is the process faulty? Absolutely. Can things be better? Absolutely. But it's the process by which we are governed right now. So you need to be engaged in the process. Everything else, post all of the conversations on how things need to change, party systems. Okay, we'll get there. But until we get there, go out and vote for the best candidate to represent the needs of your community as we go on to another need and hot button topic. But I know we hot on this today. So go ahead, because clearly where Speaking Legally goes, so does everybody else chiming in that we find out on public television.
I'm just saying, the floor is open for Ed to put pen to paper and write that book. Why you don't vote. Get it out. Start chapter 1 today. Start chapter 1 today and walk all the way through. Have stuff down. Give your experiences, because I think people only learn from storytelling. What you were about to say when you said that the woman didn't even know what's going on, like that resonates in people's heads and minds. Like, I could have been that woman. So-and-so could have been that person. I think it's important to have him memorialized.
Well, listen, a lot of times when I speak to people, especially people who are children of immigrants, I say to them, yo, do you have a story from one of your relatives of not being able to really vote or not having a choice? And most of them say yes. Right now, that president who just got assassinated, it was an issue of people not being even able to go and cast a vote. Here, hey, your polling place is there. They send you leaflets. Now they're sending you cards and nice little plastic covering. One of them even has a little hole that you could put it on your keychain, telling you your precinct and all of that. And still, people don't go vote. I've done tabling to help people register to vote. And listen, the whole felon issue and people not knowing that they have a right to vote after their supervision is ended. We talked about that on a previous show, so that's close to my heart. But you got other folks who got none of those excuses and still don't go vote, either out of apathy or they come up with some excuse.
You can take your same storyline and we can apply it to unemployment. You can take your same storyline and we can apply it to homeless and people going hungry. Yeah. We can apply it across the board.
Yeah.
It is not unique to a certain group of people. It might be more to a group's disadvantage, or we take to heart more of it because we're looking at like, come on, man, get your act together.
Yeah.
But every culture does that, every race does that, and
Well,
the potholes are big, and some of them are small but deep.
so
Either
here's
way,
the deal. Here's the deal. I don't want it to be lost, the challenge that was placed on you, Mr. Pichardo, to put pen to paper
Okay.
and
yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like
yeah,
you have
yeah.
a title of
Woo,
a book. And with that,
woo,
this is a
woo.
nice shameless plug because the workbook
Okay.
is now ready for
All right.
cardiac arrest. So the curriculum has been established for the tactical guide on how to handle police stops. So I think I need to pause to give a little shout out.
And Ed, just for you, I'll slide you the workbook for $9.99. I'll slide it to you. You can use it as a prototype to write the voting. You know, you gotta vote. Whatever I can do to help you in your mission, I will do. But it's only like they say, you only got 9 seconds to press the button. This is an info joint. Late night, you only got 9 seconds. If you don't do it yet, it's over, bro.
You know what I'm thinking of?
It's
I'm
over.
thinking about that crazy commercial. It's a crime to pay more than a dime.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So $9.99.
Well,
You want to get it quick? As a matter
yeah,
of fact,
I'm
it's over. The
excited.
sale is over. It's
Look,
over,
as
Dr. Grant.
Brother, I'll pay full
as the
price
publisher,
for you, Poppy.
Look,
No
as the
problem.
publisher, I'm very excited to announce that. And Rolanda, I hope you heard your birthday shout out. I hope you're still celebrating. She said congratulations to her brother. So yes, the workbook and the tactical guide are now available for schools and organizations and anyone in community right now. I mean, this book was written years in advance of seeing the height of racial unrest and injustice. So it's an opportunity to educate our children and to really be able to impact how we shift culture and not just get emotional about situations, but tactical ways that you can handle and prepare your children. So that was a shameless plug. And now we're going to
No
move
shame
on.
to that. There was no shame to that. That was
That's
just
why I
a
said it's
plug.
a
That's
shameless
good.
plug. So
Yes.
it's shameless. Okay, good, sis. I'm glad you got your birthday wishes. So now, John is saying, in part, it's people's failure to take responsibility. You said that right. We just all across the board, there's a lot more that we all can do to be responsible for the lives that we live and contribute to in community. With that being said, we do have another challenge that's facing us. To Mr. Russell's point earlier, we have a Supreme Court decision that is sure to be the beginning of many more conversations around immigration. This continues to be a very hot button topic when we think about our legislature and what they agree to from all of where we have come from when we talk about the experience of our immigrant communities in this country. And the Supreme Court denies bond hearings for illegal immigrants who return after being deported. What say you, our legal experts, on this?
Look, I tell you right now, as a former attorney for INS, Immigration Naturalization Services, the title of this article I could not disagree with. What it's saying is that Supreme Court is saying that you're not going to have a bond hearing. Let's define what bond hearing is. So here's the legal coming out. We're not going to catch you in the United States, realize that there was an order that was put in place. We're not talking about whether the order was valid or not. We're going to assume that the order was valid. We're going to assume that you exhausted all your remedies to appeal that order. That means to right the wrongs of that order. Because if we go into that, then we go off to another subject, right? That the order says that you have to leave, whether you agreed voluntarily or whether the facts shook out that your case was unsuccessful and you exhausted every remedy to stay. Now you have to leave. There's an order in place. You are then deported, removed from the United States. You go back to your home country. And then you come back in illegally again. Now, you might have been deported for a 10-year ban. It might be a lifelong ban. But then you come back into the country. Now, what this decision is saying, when you come back into this country, we're not going to entertain a bond hearing. Let me define bond hearing. A bond hearing is a hearing where I, as an attorney representing my client, would say, Judge, I know he came into the country illegally. However, he has family that lives here. And rather than have him detained, he can stay with his family until this hearing is over. They will have to put up some money. I don't think immigration takes property, but usually is a cash-based system. Or you say, Judge, this person came into the country illegally. However, at the time that he was picked up, he's married to a U.S. citizen. The likelihood of his U.S. citizen spouse applying for him is high. So therefore, he's not a flight risk. Let him go. That's what the bond hearing is about. If you have someone that was deported or removed from the United States, then decide to come back for whatever reason. We're not talking the reason, because I don't want us to jump to the reason why the person came back, but they're now back. I personally think that there might be some waste of time to have a bond hearing when this person is just defied an order to leave and said, I am coming back no matter what. So the bond hearing part is what the Supreme Court is talking about. We're not going to allow you to be out in America. You will have to be detained until your hearing takes place. That is the deterrence to prevent people from having an order saying, yeah, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but yet go do it anyway.
Well, two of the issues that I have with this decision are twofold. In terms of the denial of a bond hearing, I think one of the major concerns in this case was, what if you have someone that's facing a threat to their life in that country that they got deported to, that has now that wasn't in existence before during the litigation that led to the final order of removal, that is now present in the case, that
well, let me stop you right there.
Let me stop you right there.
Hey, let me stop you right there. Once again, we're talking about bond hearing. We're not talking about removing the person back to their country. Bond hearing only says is while your case is pending, you're allowed to be free in the United States because we think that you're going to come back for your case to be heard. That's what the bond hearing is about. And if that is the case, and I'll throw something out there, so because we're dealing with legal, right, is that if that is the case in your scenario, that they're afraid to go back to their country, that there's credible information that says that you cannot return back to your country, one of the forms of relief, one of the ways you get a chance not to stay in the United States, but not to go back to your own country, is what we call withholding. And that's a terminology under immigration it's called withholding. And what it means is that is if the immigration judge and your attorney effectively prove that if you go back home, if you're a Christian, you're going to be treated a certain way. If you're a Muslim, you're going to be treated a certain way. And that wasn't the case when you first was deported. Then you have a viable claim that we're not going to send you back to that country. That doesn't mean you stay here. And that doesn't mean that while we make that decision, you are able to be free.
So you consider that a viable alternative means of due process with respect to this person's detention? Because I think some of the observers were concerned about this particular immigrant ending up in a legal limbo where they're not getting any hearing regarding their detention, but they're not being removed either. They're just in detention for
here it is.
For whatever period of time until the authorities decide to move ahead with a deportation.
So now the second part of the decision tries to highlight the factor that there should be a reasonable time for the detention. Now, whenever I hear reasonable,
I think that was 6 months, right? That Gorsuch
said? Right. But they don't put hardcore standard 6 months. What they say is that in normal cases, in the case where a person has not received a prior order, usually the case is heard within 6 months. So that's you and I. We come in for the first time into the United States, we get caught, we go into immigration proceedings. Usually the first hearing, the first set of kind of understanding why you're here happens within that 6 months. For someone that's already received an order that comes back in, you're 100% correct. There was abuse where we're not going to bother with that person. That person's of a low priority. I can understand why. I'm not necessarily condoning it, but I can understand why. If you have a priority of people that have come into the United States legally, illegally, first time, and you got someone that this is their fourth time coming into the United States illegally, I can see why the priority ladder might be the way it is. And so that person will sit for a long period of time. But let me just tell you something. You, Ed, Dr. Grant, and everybody else that's listening. You know what the alternative is? The alternative is that you have a U.S. attorney, United States assistant attorney, come at you and file criminal charges against you for violating the federal law. And then you go to detention that way.
Well, I'm just concerned about the legal limbo only because right now you have children in custody without their parents, being separated from their siblings. Mm-hmm. And, you know, President Biden took office in January, and these kids are sitting there, and for some reason they haven't been able to come up with a solution to this egregious problem. I mean, there's just no reason why there should be a bunch of children sitting in cages somewhere, you know, going through God knows whatever psychological trauma that's going to affect them for the rest of their lives. And we can't find an answer in this land of milk and honey. I mean, I
look, I agree with you 100%, but that's a separate issue, right? That's an issue of how can we fix the system that due process happens in a timely fashion, right? How do we do that? And and that's why I wanted to talk about this, because this is the last step, or let me not say the last step. This is one of the bigger issues that Biden said that he would address, right? And, you know, sooner than later, you know, his Citizen Act of 2021 is going to be before Congress in some shape, form, or fashion. And for all the things it does address, it never really addressed the expediency of moving things along, right? Now, there are people that are waiting for trials in Rikers Island that will tell you off your rocker, Ed. Like, you know, I've been in here for a long time, and you telling me that this right? I see you shaking your head. Like,
well, now you're equating the status of someone who's facing criminal charges, be they innocent but still charged with a crime.
Is it a crime
cause being found?
Is it a crime versus the border? Ed, is it a crime to come across the border if you've already been deported? That is a crime. That's a mandatory 2 years.
Well, so your classification of that as a crime for me is problematic.
It's not my classification.
Well, listen, statutorily crime, but you know, let's keep it real. Let's keep it real. I mean, someone because of economic circumstances that in many cases can be traced back to U.S. foreign policy ends up in this country is now being considered a criminal.
Wait, Ed, you can, but I will pause you because there's a brother sitting in Rikers that's saying, hey, look, I didn't have to go to the Dominican Republic. I was here and I faced the same economic shit here that you might see over there, right? I mean, the argument could be straddled and it could be spread thin across the line. Once again, we're talking about a bond hearing. I don't want us to jump over and talk about whether or not you have the right to stay or not. We're saying, do you have a right to bail? Do you have a right to be out free?
And that's the issue at hand, especially because of all of these children who are sitting in what I'm sure is feeling like a purgatory for them. I can't even imagine as a mother what that feels like to know that your child is sitting somewhere. And as much as people try to say it's not a cage, that's what it is. They're away from their family. They're away from their parents, their ages vary. Like it's a humanitarian issue.
Every
And
video that I see, it looks like they're sitting in a bullpen. It's like a thing with wire. They're sleeping on the floor. You know,
I think that's 100% egregious. You'll get no argument from me. That's a different discussion.
but you're talking about the bond hearing. So there's no recourse at this point if the Supreme Court denies the bond hearings. Am I right or wrong? I mean, it's going to the Supreme Court.
I was at, just to take it back. I was talking about the videos that I've seen of the state of these children in detention. Now, in terms of these adults who, after a final order of removed, returning, my only linkage there I wanted to make clear was the legal limbo part. Yes, the decision talks about a 6-month period being looked at as within reasonableness, right? Constitutional reasonableness, because that's the term.
I don't even like the word reasonableness, because when I hear the word reasonableness, when I see police officers, what a reasonable police officer would do in this situation. Well, shit, what a reasonable African-American police officer would do in this situation versus a reasonable Polish or Irish is two different things. So I like numbers. I like numbers 6, 8, 12.
I think that's where the test is going to come, because if there's a backlog of folks like this not being able to have their detention considered withdrawal, bond, or otherwise, then this Supreme Court decision is definitely going to have to be revisited by the advocates, because right now we certainly have a broken system. My understanding is we don't have enough judges. The system is broken right now, and it needs to be fixed. Decisions need to be made regarding immigrant status. I hope that we start looking at some sort of widespread amnesty, carefully considered, carefully vetted, carefully filtered. I mean, let's make no mistake about it. Like for instance, right now, since we're trying to get the economy back going, folks are talking about how many companies are talking about how they can't find enough workers. I mean, usually usually immigration is linked to the need for employees, for some sort of economic engine that needs to be sustained. And if you don't have enough workers, I mean, that's clearly, something that's saying, hey, listen, we need to do something about this. We need to fix this. So I'm just going to stop there.
And I think that's where you have Biden with his U.S. Citizen Act of 2020. He speaks to that if you're in the United States, and first of all, what I would say about his act, having read it, and maybe we'll talk about it in another show, I would tell you that initially I like the fact that he was very conscious, or at least whoever, how they got to this point, those leaders in the room that put pen to paper were very conscious of the fact that first we're going to start with terminology, right? We're not going to call anybody aliens, right? We're going to call them non-citizens. And I'm very big on terminology because I don't like calling people defendants in the criminal world. I like to call them by their name, right? So I think that's a clap and applause for him. Now, after that, you start to get into territories that, depending upon how you feel, it gets a little difficult, right? So one of the things he wants, the roadmap to citizen is for allows undocumented individuals who can apply for temporary legal status with the ability to then become green card holders after 5 years if their criminal history background shows no criminal history and they pass some national security background, right? But you have to be in the country before January 1st, 2021. That's an amnesty. That's been going on every time a president has taken office. Now, the rules have been different. Some of the amnesties have been tied to family petitions, right? You have to have a family in the United States and you have to come in before a certain time. This one is saying, well, as long as you're working, then you could become this temporary legal permanent resident then 3 years become a legal permanent resident, or 5 years become a legal permanent resident, and then after 3 years become a citizen. I understand it, but there's still some bias in that, right? You have to know English. Now we live in a bilingual world, right? Now come on. Now you have to know English, and you have to know a certain part of civics. Now, you and I both know we've been in enough public schools that civics is not even taught anymore. It ain't even there, right? So there's some wrinkles in what he's proposing, but God bless. I mean, somebody needs to. He made the promise, and so he has to. He has to do some of this stuff, and I understand it, and it's for the embetterment. But there is a cutoff date, January 1st, 2021. Anything after that, you SOL.
Well, let's hope a number of people, if it passes, benefit from that bill.
I mean, we should hope so. I mean, we should definitely hope so.
Decent number.
We hope, especially for the children. I think that's the part that anyone with a heart, you have to think about the children in this. I mean, they're innocent. They didn't ask to be here. They're here. When I say asked to be here, asked to be born. We get children as a gift, and we should be protecting them better. And I really hope, I've heard some controversy on what's really happening on the ground and how they accommodate for these children, that it's not the cage, quote unquote, the way it looks, that they're fed and that they're clothed, but nothing can replace a parent's love, a parent's presence, family members there. That's just period. So we can't separate the humanity in these causes and those who are on the front line for advocacy around immigration and what is happening. Look into it. If that's a passion of yours or how you can support, as we've said on the show numerous times, there are many ways to be engaged. Not everyone is going to march. Not everyone is going to write and propose legislation. Not everyone is going to be a part of policy, but there's a part to play for everyone. So we really need you to be involved and to be present and accounted for when these situations affect the members of our community. This is where the legal meets the cultural. And culturally, we know we have immigration challenges up the wazoo, as they would say, right? Especially in New York City. So be mindful of it. Pay attention to the laws that are being passed. And this trickles back again to voting. Who are you voting into office that's going to be at the table when the votes are being cast for laws on the books for issues like immigration?
And let me
get it.
I'm sorry, and let me just say this. Listen, I voted for President Biden and Kamala Harris. I found I found the other choice to just be a non-choice, of course. The former president was brutal to immigrants or anybody who he considered to be non-European. Fine, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue to press the administration on the things that are important to me and my community. And this is one of them, as a Dominican American, as a son of immigrants, and same with this recent mayor election. Listen, after we vote for these people, we don't need to just stop asking for stuff. We don't need to keep pressing them. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. We got to continue to advocate. They need to make that a priority. From what I understand, these children have families in the United States. The question is connecting them to those families, making this a priority, inspecting those homes, contacting those families, make sure it's a good environment, and then moving them there. And if not, then we start talking to our partners in the faith community about doing some sort of foster care placement where we place that child in an actual residence with a family. That's safe, of course, that's vetted. And then we start saying, okay, now let's figure out how to get this child in school, and let's figure out what we're going to do next, and then take it step by step, but not some delay and having them just sit there in limbo. And that's, to me, my understanding is the problem. They haven't, looked to attack this infrastructure.
There hasn't been a system that has been created to fill the voids that you just voiced. Immigration deals with people coming in the country illegally and getting them out. They not immigration / ACS.
No,
They're not
but
immigration ACS and ACS / INS. And I'm just saying that I understand the void, and I understand the need for a bigger umbrella to put all the pieces together. I truly do, and I'm empathetic and sympathetic, and I would want it to happen. But as it currently stands now, there is no one agency that has the depth or the breadth to deal with all of that. We already have issues with tracking people that receive deportation notices, criminal or otherwise, to leave the country, right? When Obama had an uptick in deporting people, oh, he's not a black guy, he deporting people left and right. The story was that a lot of these people have already received deportation notices, and that creates an issue. We can't just say it doesn't create an issue. It's all right, because it is not. It doesn't leave room for those that have done it, quote unquote, the right way, or done it the way that it's supposed to have been done, whatever you want to use it. And as Biden goes to broaden the unity of family, and now in his Citizen Act of 2021, taking in consideration LGBTQ families and partnerships, rightfully so, now you have just broadened it even more. So as much as we look at the advantages, and this is what we get paid to do, and either one, to make sure that our clients take advantage of the situation, but also we also got to keep one eye open on the fraud that comes in it. And there's a lot of fraud.
Well, listen, all that understood. All I'm saying is what I would like to see is I would like to see the issue made a priority, such that possibly you appoint a czar, a committee,
yes,
a group of people that their only job each day and every day is figuring out how do we fix this, and issue a report to the American public every 45 days about how they're doing with this. Okay, absolutely. That's all I'm asking for.
I think that's a fair ask, given the circumstance and given the lives of these children. And to your point earlier, we don't know how this is going to affect them as grown adults. You know, it's difficult enough navigating life under normal circumstances. So imagine being ripped away in your formative years from your parents, and what after effects we'll see. So, you know,
you won't see the legal side of that until there's a case, and it probably will never happen, a case make it to the Supreme Court that has all those elements where we can start to see what the rationale is, right? And so if that's unfortunate, but that's the way our system works, where that happens.
Well, we hope that the advocates can fast forward to getting that in a position where it can be looked at and discovered. But that's what we talk about here on the show. It's the issues that affect us as a community. It's where the legal meets the cultural. We understand that the bond hearings are one specific part of a larger problem, and why we have to stay engaged and continue to advocate for the rights of those who don't have a voice and who are unable to get the word out. It breaks my heart every time we talk about this instance, and I just think about what that does to a parent as well as what it does to the kid. It's so much more. I know it's a lot, but I'll continue to see the glass half full instead of half empty. Hope springs eternal, that we can change things and move towards a more perfect union. So as we close out the show today, we want to say thank you to everyone that's tuning in. Richard, John, Deborah, we appreciate you. Rolanda, thank you for being here. Continue celebrating all the birthday folk, the Cancers at the beginning of the month, the Leos at the end of the month. Continue to celebrate and appreciate life. Life is a gift, and we have to appreciate the present that it is. So final words to our legal experts, and then we're going to close out and see you same time, same place next week, or PM Eastern Standard.
Well, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us today and this week.
I just want to let everybody know that these issues will not go away, and hopefully we are hopeful that you won't go away either.
Bye bye, everyone.